Senate will now come to order. The Pledge of Allegiance will now be led by Chief of Staff Tax, followed by a moment of silence and reflection.
If willing and able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. You may be seated.
The clerk will now call the roll. Please correct the pronunciation of your name if it is incorrect.
Baber. Barnes. Barr. Gracie. Bryant. Calder. Cost. Creed. Durham. Galavati. Galt. Goldstein. Grunner. Haber. Hamilton. Harvey. Heater. Hensley. Hurd. Howe. Kay. Kuhn. Kwame. Keene. LaPinta. Lapsley. Lazarenu. Lynn. Malachi. Brandon Miller. Isabella Miller. Montalto. Morgan. Wynn. Peterson. Rangavajula. Ravi. Sane. Sellers. Spittler. Tanner. Badlamani. Vaught. Wenzel. Whitehead.
With a quorum being present, is there a motion to approve the Journal of November 8th, 2023 is found online? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. We are now in line for general orders of the Senate, beginning with reports from Senate leadership. Speaker Pro Tempore Hurd, you are recognized to give a report to the Rules Committee.
Good afternoon, everyone. Rules moved all of its pieces of legislation forward, and this will be my last time giving the report as your Speaker Pro Tempore, and I appreciate the Senate having confidence and faith in me, and I look forward to serving among you guys as a senator, doing the constituents and the students' work. Thank you. I yield to questions.
The Speaker Pro Tempore yields to questions. Are there any questions for the Speaker Pro Tempore? Seeing none, thank you. We'll now hear a report from the Academics Committee. Is there anyone willing to give a report for the committee? Senator LaPinta, you are recognized.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Academics did not meet this week, but we are continuing to work on our initiatives. We are still looking into legislation about adding whiteboards to 650 Lincoln. There have been some complaints about that. We are still working on legislation regarding how, regarding changing how U101 teaches advising, giving more, info about that. We found SPL 11531 favorable with a vote of 5-1, and that is my report. I yield to questions.
The senator yields to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you. We'll now hear a report from the Finance Committee. Chairman Kuhn, you are recognized.
Good evening, everyone. Finance met per usual on Friday at 3:30. Very busy day, very full, definitely a lot of debate, which is great to see. And we have our typical finance legislation coming onto the floor tonight. Nothing abnormal. I'll talk more about it later. With that being said, I yield to questions.
The chairman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you. We'll now hear a report from the Health and Safety Committee. Chairwoman Ravi, you are recognized.
Hey guys, so as usual, Health and Safety met last Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Basically, the biggest thing we kind of have on the docket right now is our menstrual product drive. That will be going into effect the 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. And then we're hoping to do packaging with no periods left behind the week after that. We're currently in the process of reaching out to multiple organizations across campus, including IFC, Panhell, D9, and then ESA, as well as, I think, ODK and a couple of other groups. So we'll keep you guys posted on that. But with that being said, I yield to questions.
The chairwoman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you so much. We'll now hear a report from the Inclusion and Equity Committee. Chairwoman Bracy, you are recognized.
Happy Wednesday, y'all. So today we did meet and we have some things that we're going to get done. We're going to all make some lists of some things that we would like to do for the remainder of our term. We have an interview that we will be holding before the next Senate session on the 29th. And we are going to be sending out some emails about some people we want to work with, such as OMSA and other offices. I yield to questions.
The chairwoman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you so much. We will now hear a report from the Judiciary Committee. Chairman Bryant, you are recognized.
Good evening, everybody. So Judiciary, per usual, met this past Friday at 1 p.m. We had a matter of new business to review. It was the bill presented by Senator Morgan for the Greek Council reform and some of their codes. It was passed unanimously with amendments, sponsored completely by the Judiciary Committee. That amendment, which will be further discussed a little bit more, but essentially that adds to where when the Greek councils wish to remove somebody, they have to present notice. We're still keeping no explanation, but they have to give written notice to the President's office of that removal, just for safe bureaucracy and just make sure that we are aware of what's going on. And with that, I'll yield to questions.
The chairman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you all.
We'll now hear a report from the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Is there anyone willing to give a report? Chairman Favor, you are recognized.
Hi, Powers met Monday at 7 p.m. We had 2 interviews. We were supposed to have 5, and a lot of people just didn't show up, so it was upsetting, but it's okay. We got 2 interviews, and both of them were found unfavorable, unfortunately. One of them will be coming back for a second interview. I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Student Life Committee. Chairwoman Malachi, you are recognized.
Hi everyone. Student Life actually met this week Tuesday at 6 p.m. rather than our regular time. During that time period, we found 115-32 unanimously favorable, 115-34 favorable with a vote of 6-2. We also talked about future legislation that we want to write, and with that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you. We'll now hear a report from the Sustainability Committee. Chairwoman Heater, you are recognized.
Good evening, everyone. So the Sustainability Committee, as usual, met last Friday at 2:30. We were joined by Abby Diop from RHA, and she's in charge of all sustainability for RHA and has actually been the first organization to green certify all their events and pretty much one of the only organizations to green certify events. So they're really like a trailblazer for that. So she explained our process and helped review all of our green certification legislation, the 3 pieces that you will see later tonight on the first reading calendar. And then we also discussed the possibility of joint climate action resolutions between RHA Senate and our Senate, and then other collaborations in the works. And with that, I yield to questions.
The chairwoman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Freshman Council. Are there any representatives from the Freshman Council present? You guys are recognized.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Myron Harris, and I'm part of the Freshman Council Academic Committee. Now, regarding academic committee, we have 2 updates. Our hot takes for hot drinks is up and coming. We're getting supplies. We've got local coffee shops to give us supplies. Essentially, they give their academic hot take. They get hot cocoa or hot tea. We're trying to get that station in front of T-Coot. And then, in addition, we are meeting with Chairwoman Creed to discuss the feasibility of our syllabi initiative. And then community outreach are getting supplies, volunteers, and everything else together for the holiday hangout that we have scheduled December 1st at the orphanage. And then they are also getting things rolling for the donation drive for the kids.
Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion's big event is around February and March and is a gala at the Children's Library Archive in Thomas Cooper Library. The committee is also planning to reach out to local businesses for donations and potentially selling corsages for the event. Health and Safety Committee has a de-stressing event the week before finals where students can use chalk to write positive messages or draw pictures outside of Russell House. We also have a meet, greet, and treat tabling event the week after Thanksgiving break. Students can ask counselors questions about their services and receive a free bill.
Student Life is still working out the little details of their Carolina Castaway event. They'll be taking lanterns with lights and floating them around T-Coop Fountain. They were envisioning a sort of Tangled scene with that. It's like riding your worries away and throwing them away for the new year, new start. And then they're also doing Celsius tabling on December 5th. There will be free Celsius study tips and affirmations right there on Davis Field.
The Sustainability Committee is still in the process of organizing a soda can tab drive between the RHA neighborhoods. With the holidays coming up, Sustainability also wants to create infographics on how to recycle Christmas trees, switch from normal lights to LED lights, and cut down on food waste.
Thank you again. We yield time.
The representatives yield to questions. Are there any questions for the representatives? Seeing none, thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. We will now hear a report from the Constitutional Council. Seeing none, we will now hear a report from the Speaker of the Student Senate, Cameron Eubanks. Chief of Staff Tax, you are recognized.
Hi guys. Okay, I'm just going to keep it very brief today. Just a few reminders kind of about what's coming up in the next few weeks. So we are having a canned food drive. So if you bring in one canned food item, you'll be able to dress down for the Senate session of December 6th. If you would like to wear some ugly holiday sweaters, please be my guest. That's probably what I'll be wearing. But if you would like to dress up, you can also dress up. I am going to create this into a Senate activity. If you bring in 5 canned food items, I will count that towards one of your 2 Senate activities that can go towards an unexcused absence. And then just another update, we do not have Senate next week for Thanksgiving. And the Speaker and the Speaker's staff want to wish you a very, very happy Thanksgiving. Please go take a little break. But when we do get back from the holidays, we will have 2 Senate sessions left before we leave for holiday break. And then we will reconvene in January. So like I said, I'm going to keep it brief. So with that, I yield my time to questions.
And point of information, that canned food drive is going this week. So if you bring it to the LLC and drop it off in the basket, make sure to at least take a picture of it or some proof and send it to me and Courtney so then we can write your name down so that you can dress down on the last session before winter break. Also, point of information, since we are not meeting next Wednesday, we are not going to require committees to hold committee meetings next week. That being said, if you do have some outstanding business that needs to be done, know that Monday and Tuesday are still a day in which school is in session. So you can hold a committee meeting. We're just not requiring you to do so for next Wednesday's session. And with that, the Chief of Staff yields to questions. Are there any questions for the Chief of Staff? Seeing none, thank you so much. We are now in line for a report from the Student Body Treasurer. Treasurer Oxbach Lama, you are recognized.
Hi everyone. Quick update that we are going to have one last treasurer's workshop this Friday, only because there was some miscommunication between some orgs and the comptrollers, that some of them got the wrong link for the last one, so I wanted to make sure that the couple of orgs that didn't have the ability to attend the last one have the ability this week. So if you know any orgs that weren't able to make the last one, we will have another one this week. The link will be on Garnet Gate, and it will be at 2:30 on Friday, as per usual. Other than that, I met with the school's internal finance team today so that we could kind of combat some issues we've been facing with Garnet Gate and just talk about how we can do better in the future. And I went over the treasurer's workshop with them, and that was a really beneficial meeting. They got to hear some of the recent issues and just things that have been going on with different orgs. So that was a productive meeting. And other than that, everything's kind of been going per usual. You'll see the finance allocations today. The budget is quickly diminishing, but we still have some left. And other than that, I yield to questions.
The student body treasurer yields to questions. Are there any questions for the treasurer? Seeing none, thank you so much. We are now in line for a report from the student body vice president. Ms. Patel, you are recognized.
Good evening, Senators. I'll be speaking on behalf of Aubriana tonight. If you are in a pre-professional org, please fill out the form sent in the group meet about your leadership positions and gathering spring recruitment dates. For Key Week, we are planning things involving a professional toolkit workshop, a pre-professional org fair, and a financial literacy workshop. If academic and professional development is something you are passionate about, please reach out to Aubriana. As always, continue to suggest Inside 1801 podcast guests and fill out the Q&A form in the link tree that is also pinned in the group me. We are coming out with some fun, informative SG content in the next couple of weeks, so please make sure to be on the lookout for that. And finally, reminder to check in if you have a mentor-mentee reveal tomorrow, and be in the LSC at 7 p.m. with your poster if you do. I yield time for questions.
The representative yields to questions. Are there any questions for the representative? Seeing none, thank you so much. We are now in line for a report from the student body president. President Thompson, you are recognized.
Hey y'all. This week I've primarily been working on the Uber discount program for the Carolina Clemson game. Our student government Uber for Business account is set up, and we filmed the marketing video yesterday, so excited for that to launch next week. I've also been working on my presentation for the board in December. This will primarily be on infrastructural issues, so Wi-Fi, the new student union, and parking and different fees associated with those, and that will kind of tee up the board retreat in January. So I've been doing a lot of research and meeting with several different stakeholders about that. We've been continuing to talk about fee models in the new student union committee meeting, and we'll be joined by Dr. Edwards, Rex, and Ben Galloway next Monday to talk about this more in detail and actually start moving forward with numbers. Government Relations released their survey this week, so please be sure to take that and encourage your friends to as well. It was emailed to all of you an individual link. This data is super important both for their advocacy efforts on a government level, and also for me at higher levels. With GR, today was our first meeting to prep for Carolina Day in the spring, so super excited for the work that they are doing there at the state level. As an exec, we're meeting with Ben Galloway in a few weeks, who is the new AVP of Financial Services for Student Affairs, to discuss the purchasing and reimbursement process for our student leaders. Really appreciate everybody's participation in the basic needs competition this week. I know Courtney talked about it a little bit more, but looking forward to being able to help restock the pantry. My staff is also working on t-shirts, a new student government tent, and some other promotional items, so looking forward to showing y'all templates of those soon. We're also working on a parking guide to have out by the spring that shows upperclassmen the most convenient lots and garages to park, and based on what academic school building they're in. The parking permit dates for the spring have changed, so now permits will become available to all students on Monday, December 4th. So we're working with parking to make sure an email is sent to all students to let them know of those dates. I was also honored to get to attend the celebration of the naming of the law school last week. It's now the University of South Carolina Joseph F. Rice School of Law, and the naming comes after an extremely generous donation that will help continue to progress our law school in the right direction and provide millions of dollars to students in scholarships. And with that, I yield my time for questions.
The student body president yields to questions. Are there any questions for the president? Seeing none, thank you so much. We are now in line for special orders of the Senate. Are there any letters, petitions, appointments, applications, or other? The clerk will now read.
A communication from the Office of the Speaker of the Student Senate requesting a 1-week extension for the following positions: assistant clerk.
The question is of a 1-week extension on the appointment of assistant clerk. All in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The extension is granted. Continuing on.
Application of Kaylin Ayala Felix to be seated in the 115th Student Senate.
The application is referred to the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Continuing on.
A communication from the Office of the Speaker of the Student Senate regarding the resignation of Ian Hurd as Speaker pro tempore.
Received. We are now in line for the election of the Speaker pro tempore of the Student Senate. The floor is now open for nominations. Are there any nominations from the floor? Senator Hurd. Chairwoman Baber has been nominated. Are there any other nominations on the floor? Chairwoman Heater. Any other nominations on the floor? Seeing none, the floor is now closed for nominations. Chairwoman Baber, you are recognized to give a speech before the body.
Hi. I wish I had more time to prepare a speech. I'm sad to see Ian go. He's been a really great speaker pro temp during his time here. If I had known I was going to give a speech, I would have worn different shoes. But I'm thankful for the opportunity, and I hope the rest of the year goes well. I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields times to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you so much. We will now move to a vote on the nomination. This will be a roll call vote. The clerk will call the roll. Please state the last name of the senator you wish to vote for. Just as a reminder, if you are proxying, please say proxy, and then the last name of the senator you're wishing to vote for. And there is always the abstention option as well. The clerk will call the roll.
Baber. Barnes. Barr. Bracy. Bryant. Calder. Cost. Creed. Durham. Galavati. Galt. Goldstein. Brunner. Haber. Hamilton. Harvey. Heater. Hensley. Hurd. Howe. Kay. Kuhn. Kwame. Keen. LaPinta. Lapsley. Lazarenu. Lynn. Malachi. Brandon Miller. Isabella Miller. Montalto. Morgan. Wynn. Peterson. Rangvajula. Ravi. Sane. Sellers. Spittler. Tanner. Badlamani. Vaught. Wenzel. Whitehead.
Is there a motion to take a 2-minute recess so the clerk can tabulate the votes? Without objection, so ordered. The Senate will now come to order. By a vote of 37 Babers to 5 abstentions and 1 Lapsley, I would like to congratulate our new Speaker Pro Tempore, Chairwoman Ava Baber. Is there a motion to suspend the rules to allow the new Chairwoman to take the oath of office for Speaker Pro Tempore? Without objection, so ordered. Former Speaker Pro Tempore Hurd, you're recognized to give, again, the oath of office. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. I, Ava Baber. Do solemnly pledge. To faithfully execute the office of Speaker Pro Tempore. To abide by the student government constitution and code. To uphold the Carolinian Creed. And to represent my constituents to the best of my ability. Congratulations. And with that, we will continue on with special orders of the Senate. Are there any petitions, appointments, applications, or other? The clerk will read. Seeing no more special orders, we are now in the motion period. Are there any motions on the floor? Senator Morgan. There's been a motion to remove Senator Morgan from the Student Life Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Hurd. There's been a motion to remove Senator Hurd from the Finance Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Spittler. There's been a motion to add the senator to the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Lapsley. There's been a motion to remove Senator Lapsley from the Student Life Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator LaPinta. There's been a motion to add Senator LaPinta to the Health and Safety Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Lynn. There's been a motion to remove Senator Lynn from the Student Life Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Lynn. There's been a motion to add Senator Lynn to the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Spittler. There's been a motion to remove Senator Spittler from the Health and Safety Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Hamilton. There's been a motion to remove Senator Hamilton from the Judiciary Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Any other motions on the floor? Senator Morgan. There's been a motion to add Senator Morgan as a co-sponsor to SBL 11536. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Any other motions on the floor? Has the clerk been able to tabulate the committee standings? Is there any other motions on the floor? Seeing no more motions, is there a motion to dispense with the motion period? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. We are now on the call of the introduction of new legislation. The clerk will now read.
SBL 11535, introduced by Senator Calder, a recommendation to put the South Carolina state flag in the Carolina Volleyball Center.
Senator Calder, you are recognized to speak on the legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like everybody knows, I usually go watch our wonderful sporting events on campus. And I went to a volleyball game a few weeks back. We were playing Alabama, and I looked around after we had sang the national anthem, and I said, my goodness, we do not even have our state flag in our volleyball center. And I started noticing around, the other sporting events, soccer field, we have our state flag, football field, state flag. Our natatorium has our state flag, and so does Colonial Life Arena. And I said, I think I'm going to write a recommendation to allow us to have our state flag in our volleyball center. And with that, I yield to questions.
The senator yields to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you so much. This legislation is referred to the Student Life Committee. Continuing on with the call of the introduction of new legislation.
SBL 11536, introduced by Senator Cost and Calder, a recommendation to extend Blatt PE Center hours.
Senator Cost and Calder, you are recognized to speak on the legislation.
Hey guys, so essentially, like I said, this bill is pretty much just to extend the hours of operation of the Blatt PE Center gym as it stands currently. The gym is open kind of periodically throughout the day, from 6 a.m. to 8:30 a.m., 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., and 4:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. This makes it pretty difficult to kind of schedule your workout throughout the day. I know personally I've not been able to go to the gym a few times. Obviously, there's the option of going to Strom, but this bill is kind of to help alleviate all the stress that Strom gets. I don't know if any of you guys go to Strom, but it's like constantly packed all throughout the day, which makes it pretty difficult to get a good solid pump in. So this bill, we're recommending to make it so that Blatt is extended from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and then 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Friday. And with that, yield my time to questions.
The senators yield to questions. Are there any questions for the senators? Senator Barnes.
Yeah, so we're talking to the exec recreational committee to kind of do more research and see if they're able to. But they were willing to let a bill pass and kind of discuss it with us. So it was a possibility.
Any other questions for the senator? Senator Whitehead.
So we were, the main reason why we actually wrote the bill, we were approached by the exec team for athletics from President Thompson's team, and they came up to me and was like, hey, we want to see this as a recommendation. And I've actually heard several other people say this is brought up every year. And to your concern, that has been a concern. We want to look in more in depth, but yeah, to your concern, I think that's one reason why the hours are changed, but we can maybe work around that. We're hoping we can, because, like he said, Strom is absolutely packed, and I've actually had problems myself working out in Strom because everything's taken. And I think Blatt would be used better if it was more available to students. So, anyways, anybody else have any questions? We yield. That's it.
Any other questions for the senators? Senator LaPinta.
So I got all my information from the athletic department, from, I think, President Thompson's team. They told me, they went up to them and was like, hey, why don't we do this? And they're like, well, the people at the front desk told them, we don't know. And I'm like, well, interesting. Why? I have so many questions myself, and I personally think that can be addressed. Maybe we can have a friendly amendment to maybe work around those times. But again, like I said, this is the first reading, and we're more than willing to have an amendment if you're willing to work with us on that. All right, absolutely. Appreciate it.
Any other questions for the senators? Seeing none, thank you. The legislation is referred to the Student Life Committee. Continuing on.
SBL 11537, introduced by Senator Vaught, a bill to permit the Senate Finance Committee to allocate funds to student organizations.
Chairman Kuhn, you're recognized to speak on the legislation.
Hello, everybody. Pretty typical bill this week for finance legislation, except for the amount that was requested. There were $92,247.11 requested this lovely week, and we allocated $24,916.48. So you can imagine a lot of stuff happened at Finance Committee that I will not dive into. But yeah, this is the finance bill for the week, pretty standard. And yeah, with that being said, I yield the questions and motion to pass by voice acclamation.
The chairman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Senator Morgan.
Off the top of my head, no. Ballpark, I'm not gonna promise you anything, but I'm pretty sure around $30,000 to $20,000 is our remaining amount left, and we have 2 more meetings, I believe, for the semester. 3 more, my bad.
Senator Morgan.
They do not. And I'll elaborate a little more to that. We simply follow the codes that the university that we have provided to ourselves, so that is the way we allocate. So.
Any other questions for the senator? Senator Hamilton.
Allocated as the money for these events starts to go out, and we're gonna get the quotes back. Money will be saved in the long run. I don't have an exact figure because I don't know, but I mean there will be some more money back. I can't make any promises on like the date. I'm not gonna mention anything like that. So pretty standard allocation.
And point of information, if you're looking for an exact figure or projections, the treasurer's office will be happy to have a conversation with you in that realm. As we are only half of the finance processes, I think it's a little premature for us to give figures. So if you are inquiring about the figures, please contact Treasurer Oxbach Lama or her Chief of Staff, Sean Duty. Any other questions for the chairman? Senator Morgan. Any other questions for the chair? Seeing none, is there a motion to pass by acclamation? Senator Lapsley has objected to the passage of acclamation. Is there a motion to take a 2-minute recess? Is there a motion to take a 2-minute recess so that me and my staff can get a little bit more accurate on the Roberts rules surrounding this? Without objection, so ordered. Calling the Senate back to order. Are there any motions on the floor regarding this piece of legislation? Chairman Kuhn. The question is to table SBL 11537 indefinitely. Is there a second? Senator Hurd. The clerk will now read the title of the legislation.
SBL 11537, a bill to permit the Senate Finance Committee to allocate funds to student organizations.
So there's been a motion to table SBL 11537 indefinitely. Is there a second? All in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The legislation is tabled. Chairman Kuhn. I apologize, I could not hear you. Since he did call for a division, this will now be a roll call vote on the motion to table SBL 11537, the finance legislation. The clerk will call the roll. Please say aye if you are in favor of tabling the legislation indefinitely. Please say nay if you are not in favor of tabling the legislation. The clerk will now call the roll. And if you're a proxying, please say proxy loud and clear with the vote right afterwards. Thank you.
Baber? Barnes? Barr? Bracy? Bryant? Calder? Cost? Creed? Durham? Galavati? Galt? Goldstein? Brunner? Haber? Hamilton? Harvey? Heater? Hensley? Hurd? Howe? Kay? Kuhn? Kwame? Keen? LaPinta? Lapsley? Lazarenu? Lynn? Malachi? Isabella Miller? Or Brandon Miller? Montalto? Morgan? Wynn? Peterson? Rangivajula? Ravi? Sane? Sellers? Spittler? Tanner? Badlamani? Vaught? Wenzel? Whitehead?
The clerk will tabulate the votes. A reminder, a motion to table does require a majority vote to pass. So the clerk will now tabulate the votes. And remember, the motion to table is a majority. If everyone could keep it quiet while the clerk tabulates the votes, please. Thank you. "28 ayes to 10 nays to 5 abstentions. The motion to table does pass by majority. Is there any other motions on the floor? Chairman Kuhn. The question is retrieval from the table. Is there a second? All in favor, say aye. All in all opposed? Senator Kaye. Per our 115th rules of procedure, the motion to retrieve from the table automatically puts the legislation on the second reading contested calendar per our document within the Google Drive by the Codes and Constitution folder. That is under the motion to retrieve from the table. So there is only one motion on the floor, and that is to motion to retrieve from the table, which Port of Information is to pull a previously tabled bill off of the table and bring it up for immediate consideration on the contested calendar. It does require a majority vote. Senator Kuhn, you are recognized to speak on the motion.
All right, everybody, I'm back. I made this motion to retrieve because it's really imperative that this passes tonight. Thousands of students, dozens of clubs rely upon us for funding each and every week. We would be denying a lot of clubs the opportunity to hold great events, to send their students to many great locations, to bring prestige upon this great university, and I honestly couldn't tell you why. So that is why I am telling you right now, we need to push this forward. We need to make sure these clubs get their funding. It's just really imperative that this does pass tonight, just following precedent from our Senate Finance Committee. Also, in my entire time in the Senate, I've never seen a Finance Committee bill based off of our typical allocation been contested ever. That's just my personal experience. It could be different, but just from what I've heard, that has not happened previously. And I don't see what is different between this request and this recommendation and other ones. So with that being said, I will yield to questions.
The chairman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Chairman Bryant.
So by supporting this motion, you would like, your intention is to skip any form of committee review and just have it go straight into the contested calendar you voted upon tonight?
According to the codes, that's what would happen from this motion.
Point of information, the rules of procedure document. And specifically, if you're looking at page numbers, is in the section talking about main motions and is under the motion to introduce. Any other questions for the chairman? Chairwoman Malachi.
Many either would be delayed or they wouldn't be able to receive said funds according to the precedents we've been working off in Finance Committee, which a lot of the Finance Committee members themselves are familiar with. So I think that's something we really got to look at right now, because all of these orgs may not have the ability to go on great trips. They may not have the ability to hold great programs if we don't move it forward tonight. So that'd be problematic, in my opinion.
Any other questions for the senator? Senator Kaye.
Sure. I didn't say won't. I'm just saying there's a lot of special circumstances. enclosed within this bill itself that would take me probably 2 hours to talk about that I don't have time for currently. But it would really depend on each allocation request. If you would like me to divulge that at a later date, I wouldn't mind. I just simply, I would have to pull up a lot of other information. I don't think me being up here doing that would be a benefit to all the senators, so. Sure.
Senator Kay.
I'm struggling to understand what you're asking me. I would have to go through the in-depth nature of the finance codes with you right now, and honestly, I don't have them in front of me, so I can't answer that question. I'm sorry. There has been no need for that in my entire time as a senator, so I would say potentially in the future, yes. If I would have been told this idea, I would have been more than happy to work with the ad hoc committee for future reference and maybe making that precedent. But I'm just speaking about what's been the precedent from the last year or so I've been involved in student government, and I'm pretty sure previous years, according to people I'm familiar with. So that, yeah.
Any other questions for the senator? Chairwoman Heater. Is there a single question that you have, Chairwoman Heater?
I would say the Senate Finance Committee always works diligently on all of our bills. We go with care, as all my members are familiar with. We go through each and every allocation request with care. And if we have a specific reasoning behind not accepting it, there is a reason with either the codes or within our own discretionary capability that the Finance Committee does have. So,
Any other questions? Senator Lazarenu.
I would say that's not pertinent to this legislation.
I'm going to germane that. If the clerk could strike that from the journal, that's not pertinent to the question at hand. Any other questions? Senator Lynn.
It's once again a complicated question that it's kind of hard to answer right now from being up here. The reimbursement process is not on our end, so that's more of some employees at the university can answer that. Personally, I cannot currently answer that question.
Any other questions? Vice Chairman Harvey.
There's a heavy potential that many clubs may not have the capability to receive funds.
Any other questions for the senator? Senator Kay.
So with that being said, if this does not come out of the table tonight, there are dire consequences for many people and many clubs. So with that being said, I highly recommend that we move this out of the table currently and move it onto the floor so we can vote on it later. It's a very crucial piece of legislation, and I think it needs to be passed, and we need to pull it out of the table.
And point of information, in terms of parliamentary procedure, the bill was tabled and voted on by majority. So if the motion to retrieve from the table does not pass, the bill will effectively be tabled indefinitely. When in the terms of a motion to retrieve from table, essentially it would go to the second reading contested calendar, meaning that there will automatically be a period of debate on the legislation for which any senator in the body can raise concerns that they have with the legislation during the second reading calendar if the motion to retrieve from table passes. Senator Lazarenu. Granted. Senator Spittler. Granted. Senator Durham. Granted. Senator Durham. Granted. Senator Montalto. Granted. Senator Montalto. Granted. Senator Goldstein. Granted. Senator Goldstein. Granted. Senator Lynn. Are you requesting a proxy as well? Granted. Senator Miller. Granted. Senator Miller. Granted. Senator Gruner. Granted. Is there another motion from you, Senator? Granted. Is there any other senator wishing to speak on the motion? Senator Hurd, you are recognized. And point of information, Senate sessions normally run till 8:30, 9 o'clock. So if you can stay, please stay. We are granting proxies, but we soon will not be. Thank you. Senator Hurd, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, senators. I want to speak towards the process, and I think we've got to the point where now we're talking about whether or not this bill should pass, and I don't think that was the original objection, and I don't think it's fair that we are framing this argument in this way. My understanding is that senators had concerns, and there was an initial objection because we're down to the last dime. And senators wanted finance to come back, research it further, and come back on the second reading calendar with more data, more information, instead of just rubber stamping this as we always do. At the end of the day, and we've seen this, it's called a recommendation because Finance Committee is recommending this body to act one way or the other. I think it is completely reasonable that if there are concerns from even a fraction of our senators, that we send it back and we have Finance Committee not kill it, but do the research further. Come back with more information. That's their job. Committees are here to research. And when we get down to the brass tacks, 3,000 students, that's how many students each senator is representing in those seats. And I think it's imperative that we do the research, we do the work, and so if this bill does go on to the second reading, I am going to make the motion to commit it back to Finance Committee. And I think that's important because I want to be clear, there is no senator in this body right now, I can say with confidence, who wants to kill this legislation, who wants clubs to lose their funding. But yes, we do have senators who want more information, who, representing the students they were rightfully elected to serve, want to make an informed decision when we're down to the last dime. And I think that's their right. And I think this body, seeing these concerns and being a deliberative body that researches all the facts, should entertain this. So I hope that, upon this motion being made, that senators, will support the deliberative process so that way we can just be an informed Senate, be responsible fiduciaries. And to be clear, I think that if we move forward without heeding these concerns, we will have rejected our fiduciary responsibility to the students, and this student activity fund running out of money will be on our hands. I want to make that clear. With that being said, I thank all the senators for hanging in here, and I rest my case. I hope that maybe senators will have a more holistic understanding of where the objections are coming from. Thank you, and I yield the well.
The senator yields to well. Is there any other senators wishing to speak on the motion? Senator Hamilton, you're recognized.
I'm just going to keep this really, really brief. I'm just going to point out that we had $90,000 worth of funds requested, and approximately $20,000 of that $90,000 were granted. So that means that finance committee on its own was already critical enough in the finance request that we denied 77% of that request. So I'm not sure if you guys really think that we need to go back in and be more critical about it after we already denied 77% of the allocation requests. Just think about that. With that, I yield to questions.
The senator yields to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Chairman Bryant.
Can you clarify your question?
I think it's great that the 70,000 was not, $90,000 was not given. I guess my question would be, has that same prudence and even deduction to try to reduce the amount of money so we have more later on than continue the entire time?
Yes. I am I'm a member of Finance Committee. I'm very confident in the fact that we make decisions like for what's going to best serve our university, and we're doing our best to try and sustain the funds as long as possible.
Any other questions for the senator? Vice Chairman Harvey. Granted. Senator, any other questions, Senator Lynn?
I don't know any specific statistics about the percentage of funds that are denied each week.
Any other questions for the senator? Senator Raghunathan.
No. We looked at each budget allocation that was requested. We looked at the circumstances behind them, how much money they were requesting, everything else. We looked at how much money we have left, and that's how the decisions were brought to you. And also, just reminding everybody that the bill we're discussing right now is about this week's budget allocation. It has nothing to do with what we've allocated in the past, and it has nothing to do about what we're going to allocate in the future. It's just this week's.
Any other questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you so much. So is there any other senator wishing to speak on the motion? Senator Hurd. There's been a call for the quorum. The clerk, or is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. The clerk will now call the roll. And again, if you are proxying for someone, please say proxy when their name is read by the clerk.
Baber. Barnes. Barr. Bracy. Bryant. Calder. Cost. Creed. Durham. Galavati. Galt.
Senator Galt. Next name on the list, please.
Goldstein. Grunner. Haber. Hamilton. Harvey. Heater. Hensley. Hurd. Howe. Kay. Kuhn. Kwame. Keen. Keen. LaPinta. Lapsley. Lazarenu. Lynn. Malachi. Brandon Miller. Isabella Miller. Montalto. Morgan. Wynn. Peterson, Rangavajula, Ravi, Sane, Sellers, Spittler, Tanner, Badlamani, Vaught, Wenzel, Whitehead.
Is there a motion to take a very brief recess to finalize the calculations for proxies? Without objection, so ordered. I would ask that the senators please stay within the chamber itself and do not go past the stage. Thank you. The Senate will now come back to order. The proxy count does not match what was submitted onto the Garnegate portal, so the clerk will call the roll again. To clearly state, if you are proxying for an individual and you submitted that on Garnegate, unless they explicitly messaged you via digital communication or in-person communication, you must say proxy on their name. Let me say that again. If you're proxying for an individual and you submitted via Garnegate, technically there was a amendum signed in the Garnegate form saying that person, you were acting on behalf of that senator. So it is your obligation to say proxy when their name comes up. The clerk will now call the roll.
Baber, Barnes, Barr, Bracy, Bryant, Calder, Cost, Creed, Durham, Galavati, Galavati, Galt, Goldstein, Brunner, Haber, Hamilton, Harvey, Heater, Hensley, Hurd, Howe, Kay, Kuhn, Kwame, Keen, LaPinta, Lapsley, Lazarenu, Lynn, Malachi, Brandon Miller, Isabella Miller, Montalto, Morgan, Wynn, Peterson, Rangavajula, Ravi, Sane, Sellers, Spittler, Tanner, Adlamani, Vaught, Wenzel, Whitehead.
The clerk will now tabulate the proxies and the attendance to see if we meet quorum. And let the record reflect that Senator Harvey has got back in the chamber. With a quorum being present, we are now open to motions on the legislation. Chairman Kuhn. There's been a motion to call the question to retrieve from the table. Just a reminder, this is a majority vote and will be a voice vote unless a division is called. So the question is retrieval from the table of SBL 11537 to place it on the second reading contested calendar. Is there a second? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The legislation is retrieved from the table and is placed on the second reading contested calendar. Continuing on the call of the introduction of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11538, introduced by Chairwoman Heater, Senator Rangavajula, and the Sustainability Committee, a resolution to demonstrate student government support for the green certification process.
The senators are recognized to speak on the legislation. Senator Hamilton. Granted. Senator Calder. Granted. Senator Lapsley. Granted. Whenever you guys are ready.
Good evening, everyone. No, it's a long night, so we'll keep it brief by rolling the information for all three of our legislation into one cohesive presentation. So starting off, we found this bill important to exemplify our the university's commitment to environmental sustainability on the campus. And some background, the standard for which sustainability is measured on campus is the STARS report. And some important metrics that you might want to know is that we're ranked only in the 45th percentile among hundreds of other nations overall. And with specific metrics such as sustainability culture, we're only 25th percentile. sustainable procurement for events, 58th percentile, waste minimization, 32nd percentile, and a 0 out of 100 score for sustainable planning. So when these ratings look more like my grades on quizzes at the end of the semester, more than the performance of a flagship university, I think it's important that we start showing commitment to practices that can improve sustainability and to lead by example as the student government. So with that, we'd like to shed some light on green certification and how that can help us on this pathway to exemplifying the sustainability culture.
Yeah, so thank you, everyone. I'll keep it short and sweet because I know we've all been here for a while. But essentially, we have 3 pieces of legislation that came out from the Sustainability Committee tonight. The first one, which is the one we're speaking on right now, is a resolution just to demonstrate general support. So the that clause of that is just basically that we recognize the importance of environmental sustainability and that we endorse, encourage green certification programs. This is no codifying. This is not a bill. This is not a change of codes. This is just recommendation that we promote this. A resolution, sorry. Then other ones are recommendations. This is just a resolution that we're made aware of that. And then green certification process, okay, what is that? I've been having a lot of meetings with Sustainable Carolina, Gloria Esteen, she's a project coordinator in charge of that, and then Abby Diop, who's in charge of it for RHA, and she's implemented it, all that. So basically green certification, literally so easy. Sustainable Carolina has a free process where basically they have you just submit a form, which I got them to create a link for it. So we're literally gonna have this hyperlink that they can use. So you just submit this form, takes about 5 minutes to fill out. You say what your organization is, what your event is, which if you're planning an event, you have all this information on hand. It's not even really adding a separate step of getting this. You send that form, Abby, who fills it out for all of RHA, says it takes about 5 minutes. And then once you fill that form out, then you will schedule a meeting time. And then, so you fill that in without 24 hours before your first meeting, and then you have your meeting time. And during that meeting, you spend about 15 minutes, maybe even less. Abby said she had one that was just 8 minutes, where you just go through, you say what your goals are under each category, and it literally is about 15 minutes of discussion. There are no required changes. It's basically just having a green consultant on it who's literally free and there to support you. And this is I just think that the fact that Sustainable Carolina has this process, if we can promote the accessibility and use, RHA is currently, don't quote me on this, but they are currently the only organization that regularly uses the green certification process. And I know last semester when it opened, it was only RHA applying for it. So I think that we can set a precedent to make this increase what RHA started and make this a norm. And it's literally would add RHA, Abby said for her it adds about 30 minutes of work. But to be honest, this is all recommendations and none of it's codified. So if there is a hurdle that's being run into, then that can be adjusted for what is reasonable and for what's reasonable for the workload. And I just think it's a great thing to promote. I'm sorry that wasn't short and I wanted it to be, and my apologies.
Do the senators yield to questions?
Yes, yield to questions.
The senators yield to questions. Are there any questions for the senators? Seeing none, thank you so much. The legislation is referred to the Sustainability Committee. Continuing on with the call.
SBL 11539, introduced by Chairwoman Heater, Senator Rangabajula, and the Sustainability Committee. A recommendation to the Treasurer's Office to encourage the use of green certification for student organization events funded by student government.
The senators are recognized to speak on the legislation.
All right, when I say short, I mean it this time. This is exactly as it says. Basically, we spoke with the Treasurer's Office, already met with Sean Duty, Chief of Staff, and they confirmed that basically in the Treasurer's slide, this hyperlink we're talking about, we want to put it in the Treasurer Workshop slide so that when we have our reach of all these orgs, basically they can know about this, just a great way to promote it, and then put it in the Treasurer's Toolbox, which is on the SG website. That's what this legislation is.
Do the senators yield to questions?
Yes, yield to questions, sorry.
The senators yield to questions. Are there any questions for the senators? Seeing none, thank you so much. The legislation is referred to the Sustainability Committee. Continuing on.
SBL 11540, introduced by Chairwoman Heater, Senator Rangabajula, and the Sustainability Committee. A recommendation to implement green certification for student government programming and events.
The senators are recognized to speak on the legislation.
All right, so this one also, as it says, we are just saying basically that we think that for student government programming, if we could green certify all of our events, that would be awesome. And this is our recommendation to do so. And yeah, in the future, maybe if, after this trial run, if this could be codified, if this is a success, that'd be awesome. But at this, it's a recommendation that we would love to support VP programming or whatever in the, or whomever in that process. And RHA currently green certifies every single one of their events, and that's about 8 per month. And yeah, she said it takes about 30 minutes.
Just final closing remarks. I think we talked about how easy it is, just like 15 minutes of your time, to get some really good ideas on how to minimize your environmental impact. I think we really should lead by example. So we can start off by doing it as student government. I think can really start to spread to other organizations as well. So I think it's a good idea. Again, we're not trying to make this harder on anyone. We're just trying to make it better for the environment.
Do the senators yield to questions? The senators yield to questions. Are there any questions for the senators? Seeing none, thank you so much. The legislation is referred to the Sustainability Committee. Continuing on the call, the introduction of new legislation, the clerk will now read. Hearing none, we are now on the call of the uncontested calendar. The clerk will now read.
SBL 11530, introduced by Senator Morgan, a bill to amend the codes regarding the structure of the Greek Relations Cabinet Committee.
Is there anyone willing to speak on this legislation? Chairman Bryant, you are recognized.
Good evening. I'm clearly not Senator Morgan, so I'm not the author, but I'm going to do my best to give it its due diligence. So essentially, this is the bill that restructures some of the processes with the Greek councils and how they're done, and how they get representatives onto the councils like done with student government. This is supported by the President's office, and Senator Morgan worked in tandem with the President herself. The only amendment that has come through was one from Judiciary, which I am the chairman, and the Judiciary Committee 100% supports it. Essentially, it just adds in subsection 5 there, if you happen to be looking at it, that is a given time, it adds with written notice to the president. That's just to make sure that the president's office is aware for future terms, whatever, that someone is coming in and coming out, and they're just not like a circular, they're just a door coming in and out, in and out, in and out. But there is some form of notice. With that, I will yield to questions. And if anyone's kind enough to put that amendment on there, I'd really appreciate it.
The chairman yields to questions. Senator Kaye. There has been 3 amendments submitted to my office on Garnet Gate. Which amendment are you referencing?
SBL 11530, number 1.
Chairman Kuhn? There's been a motion to add Amendment SBL 115, Amendment 1, SBL 115, Amendment 1 to SBL 11530. Does the sponsor find it friendly or unfriendly?
He's not here, but he's given me the go-ahead to say yes.
Sponsor finds it friendly. The amendment is adopted. Any other motions on the floor? Senator Kaye? There is 2 remaining. Was this the amendment submitted by you yourself, or who was it submitted by?
Number 1 is that amendment. I submitted it on your behalf. I'm unaware of any other amendments on this piece of legislation other than the one submitted.
Is there a motion for a 2-minute recess to clarify amendment structures? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Kaye and Chairman Bryant, if you come down to the front, please. This is what we had no idea. This is what was submitted. This is what was submitted.
If you talk to him about it and he expresses it fine, I'd say it's probably not.
Because I don't know if that's the validation or not. If you want, I can talk and
No, it's whether we can say he accepted it as friend. That just bypasses the whole vote. So that was also on our bad side. No, it's sorry. No, you're good. So O1 is third, O2 is the numbers on the got messed up. So O2 is yours because well, no, you know what? I Third Amendment, and I was hallucinating as so that was as a body and Tyler. You said it seems okay with it. I think also. Who's it? I know we have the right to accept or deny. Yeah, I agree. No, but yeah, let's just. No, it wasn't. Sorry, I was just confused. We didn't have the space to I thought you maybe submitted what I did on.
No, it's okay. We figured it out. Okay.
Are you ready to go, Clinton? You're good. The Senate will now come back to order. Senator Kaye, do you have a motion? There's been a motion to add amendment number 2 to SBL 11530. Does the sponsor find this amendment friendly or unfriendly?
As the embodiment of the sponsor, it's friendly.
The sponsor of SBL 11530 finds the amendment friendly, and amendment number 2 is adopted into the legislation.
I 100% support this bill. I yield.
Seeing as there's, is there any more questions for the chairman? Seeing as there are no more questions, we'll now move to a vote on the legislation. This shall be a voice vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The legislation is adopted. Continuing on the call of the uncontested calendar.
SBL 11531, introduced by Senator Morgan, a recommendation to urge the administration of the University of South Carolina to reinstate the bust of figures pertinent to the university's history in the South Carolinian Library.
Is there anyone willing to speak? Chairman Bryant, you are recognized.
I'm back. This is the same piece of legislation that it's been when he first introduced it. I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has them.
Do you yield to questions?
Yes, sir, I yield to questions.
The chairman yields to questions. Senator Hamilton.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I've talked to Senator Morgan about this. The purpose of this bill is to encourage the university to consider putting them out. That would be left to the discretion of the university for them to choose, and the student government is not supporting certain ones or whatever. It's merely just for them to consider putting them back out. So it puts their ball in their court.
Any other questions for the senator? All right, seeing none. We shall now move to a vote on the legislation. This shall be a voice vote since it was in the uncontested calendar. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The legislation is adopted. Continuing on the call.
SBL 11532, introduced by Senator Morgan, a recommendation to reinstate the game day tradition of passing the Forever TV banner down the student section before the start of home football games.
Is there anyone willing to speak? Chairman Bryant, you're recognized.
Third time's a charm. Bill speaks for itself. It's very fun. I support it. I yield to questions.
Is there any questions for the senators? Chairwoman Heater.
Go right ahead. As far as I think there was some incident, though I retort with not let one bad incident ruin a piece of heritage and tradition for many more Gamecocks to come. And that's what I was asked to say as the embodiment of Senator Morgan.
Any other questions for the senator? Senator Barnes.
He's currently in talks with the administration.
Any other questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you so much. Since this was on the uncontested calendar, we'll now move to a vote on the legislation. This shall be a voice vote. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The legislation is adopted. Continuing on the call.
SBL 11534, introduced by the Rules Committee, a resolution to support the building of a new student union and student organization involvement in expansion plans.
Senator Hurd, you are recognized to speak.
Hello, everyone. I'll keep this brief. As we spoke about in last week's meeting, this is just a carbon copy of what RHA has put forth, and we are supporting nice things for our students to gather and engage in community. I yield to questions.
The senator yields to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Seeing none, since this was on the uncontested calendar, we'll now move to a vote on the legislation. This shall be a voice vote. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The legislation is adopted. Continuing on the call. Hearing none, that completes the call of the uncontested calendar. We are now on the call of the contested calendar. The clerk will now read.
SBL 11537, introduced by Senator Vaught, a bill to permit the Senate Finance Committee to allocate funds to student organizations.
Chairman Kuhn, you're recognized to speak on the legislation.
I'm back, everybody. Hello. Same bill. We talked about it a lot tonight, so I don't think I have to say much. Really important. It needs to pass. A lot of clubs are relying on us. I yield to questions.
The chairman yields the questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you so much. Since this was on the contested calendar, we shall now enter a period of debate on the legislation. Are there any senators who wish to speak on the passage of SBL 11537? Seeing no more debate, we shall now move to a vote on the legislation. This shall be a roll call vote since it was on the contested calendar. A vote in the favorable aye is the vote for the passage of the recommendation. A vote in the negative nay is a vote to deny passage of the recommendation. The clerk will now call the roll.
Faber? Barnes? Barr? Bracy? Bryant? Calder? Cost? Creed? Durham? Galavati? Galt, Goldstein, Grunner, Haber, Hamilton, Harvey, Heater, Hensley, Hurd, Howe, Kay, Kuhn, Kwame, Keen, LaPinta, Lapsley, Lazarenu, Lynn, Malachi, Brendan Miller, Isabella Miller, Montalto, Morgan, Wynn, Peterson, Rangavajula, Robbie, Sane, Sellers, Spittler, Tanner, Badlamani, Vaught, Wenzel, Whitehead.
The clerk will now tabulate the votes. By a vote of 42 ayes to 0 nays and 1 abstention, the legislation is adopted. Continuing on the call of contested legislation, the clerk will read. Hearing none, that completes the call of the uncontested calendar. That completes the call of the contested calendar. We are now in line for a period of open discussion. Does any senator wish to bring a matter of attention to the body? Speaker Pro Tempore Baber.
Hi. I just want to say, if you guys have any concerns or anything that you'd like to raise, please join the ad hoc committee. We're always welcoming more members if you're concerned with finance reform, or just join the finance committee if you have concerns about that as well. That's all. Thank you.
Do you yield to questions?
I yield to questions.
Speaker Pro Tempore yields to questions. Are there any questions for the Speaker Pro Tempore? Seeing none, thank you so much. Is there any other senator wishing to bring a matter of attention to the body? Seeing none, we are now in line for a period of announcements. Are there any announcements from the floor? Seeing none, I have a very, very short announcement. Just as a reminder, just some things that I saw tonight. We saw a lot of different motions being used, which is amazing if you are new to Senate and new to student government. That type of exposure is awesome. I'm like a parliamentary nerd over here. I'm geeking out over it. But just a reminder that we, on top of the codes, the Senate body voted on the 115th Rules of Procedure at the very first session of the term. And that governing document has a lot of information about different types of motions that you can make in session. And the motion to retrieve from table is specifically laid out in there and the process that it follows. So is the motion to table, so is the motion to call the question. All of those basic motions that you heard tonight are in that document. So if you're confused, definitely use my office as a resource, but also look through that document. If you don't want to read through all of it, you can just control search into the document. But that is where it lies. So just wanted to give a little bit of context of that. I'll take questions in a second. And also just a reminder that these sessions are professional dress, and my office dignifies professional dress as a coat and a tie for guys, and ladies as also a suit of some kind or a blouse with nice pants or anything like that. So please remember the dress code. This is a very dignified body, and we need to respect that with the dress code. We'll be sending out a reminder specifically what is professional dress in our email. just to remind you about what is professional dress versus business casual or smart casual or casual. And it's very, very important that we do follow it. If you have an exception, like Senator Hurd's legislation that passed earlier in the semester, please reach out to my office and we will grant the exception once we review why you are making an exception to dressing professionally. But please communicate that to our office if that is your wish. I'd also like to say that, as you can see, Senate really does go until 8:30 sometimes, or 9 o'clock. Our scheduled end time is technically 9 o'clock on the reservation. So as a senator, it's your duty and obligation to stay here for a majority of the votes. So in that last roll call vote, and any roll call vote tonight, if you do not properly get a proxy, it will be counted as unexcused, because it's important that you are sitting in your seat and the students put you in your seat to vote. So it's very, very important, because there are sometimes legislation that is on the contested counter that does not get brought up until the very end of session. So please recognize that. I understand you all have commitments, but again, you were elected. In some of your cases, you were interviewed and appointed to this position, so you need to respect the people that put you into office and make sure you're here to vote and to participate, obviously. And with that, the rest of my things will be coming out in email. Just a reminder as well, the canned food drive. If you have a canned food item, you can either bring it to me or Courtney tonight, or you can put it in the box till the end of the week and just take a picture of your canned food item and send it to us, and we will mark you down so you can dress fun on December 6th. And with that, I'll yield to questions. Are there any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, is there any other announcements from the floor? With no further announcements, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. The Senate will now stand adjourned until Wednesday, November 29th, 2023.